But I like that because, you know, you have a built-in move-on clause.
Yes.
You know, they're going to get a girlfriend one day, they might, you know, or boyfriend or whatever.
Someone once said to me, they go, I love having young couples in my building because one of two things are going to happen. They're either going to get married
or break up.
They're going to have kids or they're going to break up.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And all three of those, they have to move.
What you don't want is, of course, and I'm not the one to come up with this, but somebody who says it's their forever home. Like typically you don't want that. Some people might. I mean, as an investor, I've typically not wanted that. And then, or people who are in their 40s where you've got two separate marriages that both had kids coming together. That's something I've had and I prefer not to because it's just so hard on the house. Welcome back to REI Hot Seat. Andrew Hines here with Jacob Campagnaro.
Hello.
We're talking about a triplex today.
Yeah. A little bit different than what we usually do.
Sure. Well, I mean, what's been usual ever since I had a baby, everything's been up in the air. We haven't had a whole lot of normal, but episode wise anyway. So we'll get back into the swing of things. I believe this is our first episode of the new year, if I'm not mistaken. If it is, Happy New Year. And what better way to start the new year than looking at deals to make profit, money? Yeah,
right on.
Hit the ground running.
So. I'll give you kind of a little breakdown on this one. So, like I said, it's a triplex. It's located in St. Catharines, a little bit smaller than what we normally talk about on this podcast. But I thought, hey, you know, we have a ton of these types of properties, these smaller ones, right? Like we like the big ones. They're fun. They're juicy. You know, everybody wants to hear about that. But reality is, you know, this may work for somebody's investment strategy better than a 30-unit apartment building. Right? Maybe they have the capital. They don't have the capital for the bigger one. Maybe it's just a point in their life where they want to acquire residentially versus commercial.
Yeah, and this was nicely renovated from the photos.
You'll see the photos while I'm talking. But
I've just been scrolling through them. So
so this one here, the seller is a very good client of ours. We've bought and sold with him many times. He is extremely particular on how he does his renovations and how he runs his properties. And this is a perfect example of it. So it's a 3-unit property. There's a 3-bedroom main floor unit, a 1-bedroom main floor, and a 1-bedroom upstairs. The basement is being underutilized right now. It's currently just the owner's storage, but we can do storage lockers in the lower level as well.
Is it like proper height?
Proper height, full height. I'm 6'2". I fit down there, no problem. So there's more opportunity to add income in the basement. But yeah, overall,
it's potential 4th unit or not really?
Potentially. Yeah, potentially. Like right by bylaw, you're allowed doing 4 units, and there's room in the backyard. It's quite a large backyard. You might even be able to get a garden suite back there. So there's definitely more.
So there's future play here.
There's a huge future play. But what I want to talk about today is just proper cash flow, deal making, and how do we get this thing acquired, right? So
okay.
So my play on this property is we sat down with the owner and we discussed a vendor take-back mortgage. Because we're talking residential financing, makes it a little bit easier to work with a VTB in second position. It's not a slam dunk, but it is easier than CMHC.
Yeah, and I'll give my interpretation of why
Andrew
that's easier.
Was a mortgage broker, like you used to do.
Yeah, I'll give my interpretation on that. So yes, it is easier because with commercial, they do an annual inspection, they do an annual review. They're looking at your financial statements. They might examine the title of the property. In both cases, it's a violation of your mortgage contract. It's just in the case of commercial, they're likely to look and they want to build it into the DCR, right? Whereas if somebody were to do this, as long as you could close, in theory, you could throw the second on after the fact and they would never know. That's in theory, not advice. I'm not advising anyone to break the law. I'm just saying my understanding.
And there is cases, Andrew, where we have gotten approval to have a second mortgage there, right?
Yeah, commercially you can get approval as long as the debt service works.
Even residential though, I've had it.
Residential? Yeah. Well, residential I've had it, of course, with anytime you're dealing with private. They don't care. Private first or a semi-institutional first, they don't care.
B-lender?
B-lender first, they don't care usually, as long as they're in first priority, right?
Yeah.
So there's ways to get that done, but anyways.
Exactly. So, so I think the play here is we're going to try to minimize down payment and maximize cash flow. So what is the best combination of first mortgage plus VTB, interest only? We can do up to a 5-year term if you want. We can look at a 3-year term, whatever we want to do. And then the management and the actual property itself is in great condition. So I'm not too worried. I don't want to focus too much on condition because
the asset looks good.
They're renovated to the nines. Like they are.
So they should draw good rents. And I don't know what your monthly
if you go to
rents are
at the bottom of the tab.
Okay, we'll just go to rent roll real quick.
I just whipped this together quickly, but you're looking at around $2,000 for the 3-bed.
And these are current rents?
These are current rents. We have lease agreements. Yep.
Okay.
And I'll tell you this, I went through all 3 units and the tenant mix in the building is great as well.
Yeah.
Like they're clean.
Well, that's
you can even see from the photos, like they're all tenanted, right?
That's the thing. A lot of like landlords, and I didn't really totally resonate with it, although I've had bad tenants. It's like if you put a good product out there and you're in an area where you can attract a professional. I love getting the young professionals because they're kind of in it for a couple of years while they save their down payment to buy a house. Yeah. Although that landscape's changed. But I like that because you have a built-in move on clause.
Yes.
They're going to get a girlfriend one day, they might, or boyfriend or whatever.
Someone once said to me, they go, I love having young couples in my building because one of 2 things are going to happen. They're either going to get married or break up. They're going to have kids or they're going to break up.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And all 3 of those, they have to move.
What you don't want is, of course, and I'm not the one to come up with this, but somebody who says it's their forever home. Like typically you don't want that. Some people might. I mean, as an investor, I've typically not wanted that. Or people who are in their 40s where you've got 2 separate marriages that both had kids coming together. That's something I've had, and I prefer not to because it's just so hard on the house. There's so many people, and they never leave.
Well, and that's it. So, so you have stable tenants, you have good tenant mix in the building, you have market rents, right? So as we're looking at it today, it's a turnkey property. So now, what kind of buyers is going to attract? Well, I'm hoping to find somebody that maybe doesn't have a ton of capital to spend and go buy a property right now at 75, 80% loan to value, because maybe we can get you guys to 95% and you have a 5% down payment, right? Or a 10% down payment minimum.
On this one though, because you can't go commercial, like the most you're really going to do is 80% loan to value, right?
On res, yeah.
Yeah, on res.
Like and that's almost if you're living in it. I would call it 75. I think I ran it at 75 there.
Yeah, you ran it at 75. If you were to live in a triplex, I think you could get away with 10% down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you take one unit.
Yeah. But rule of thumb is rental property, residential financing, 75% loan to value.
I'd say you could probably do 80.
Maybe 80.
I think 80 is a pretty good bet. And no CMHC insurance premium, so that is the bright side there. But I think Jake ran this at 75, and so that's a $255 down payment needed.
So now let's throw a small VTB in there.
So if you throw in a second VTB, and one of the ways this can work is if it can't work on the subject property is maybe even throw the VTB on a different property that you own. So that's something that's a very common strategy because the bank's looking at property A, which is subject property. But if you already own 3 other rental properties and there's room, then you could just say, hey, I know we can't secure it here, but give me the VTB against this other property in second position. And
I've spoken with the owner about that. He's cool with that.
Yeah.
Very savvy investor. So he kind of knows, he sees it, right? He knows, hey, minimal down payment's going to help that cash on cash return and help open this up to more of a bigger buyer pool. Right, more people available here. So again, this is great for somebody that owns maybe a condo unit, trying to get into their first rental unit, house hacking. It's in a nice area of St. Catharines. There's a lot of options here. And I think if we play a little bit with that purchase price and then the lever of VTB at lower interest, I think there's a trifecta here of the perfect deal that's actually going to make this look really good. And
I'm not speaking for your seller because I know you can't divulge, but and maybe you haven't got at a specific number, but say if I ran it at a 5%, it does look like it'd be a little bit cash negative here. I guess we'd have to play with that, and that's part of the terms of the deal.
Well, why don't you drop that interest rate down to like a 3% or on the VTB? On the VTB, yeah. It's a small VTB. And again, not speaking for the seller. I just want to noodle with this with you, right?
So at a 2.5% on that VTB, I'm getting a payment of $287, and then it leaves $163 in cash flow.
And then why don't you go and drop that purchase price to $875 or something like that, right?
Yeah, so that's the other thing. Again, Jake's not speaking for a seller, but if a deal can be negotiated. We said this in a previous episode. Like, there's so much about like even buyer like credentials, and like if you feel like you're working with a good buyer, you're willing to, and if your offer's clean.
Well, but that's it, and that's why like today's argument here is yes, we're using a live property. I'm confident this property will sell. I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah.
we already worked on deal structure with the owner and how this is going to sell. What I want to do here is show people how I look at my deals, right? I look at the ways I can manipulate this to say, how does this make the most sense? What gets me, attracted to this deal?
Sure.
So there's a couple different ways. And
well, if we dropped it to 875, then we're looking at a 368 cash flow after servicing that second mortgage, the VTB, and your money in the deal at that rate is only 19 grand. So I mean, it's a pretty low sticker price. I don't know how that's correct. Yeah, maybe that's is that right?
No. Something's going on.
No, the down. So there's something calculated wrong. Down payment here is showing 43, so you're probably going to be like 60 in total after you pay your land transfer and stuff. Yeah. So spreadsheet error there. I knew that couldn't be right.
But look at that, for example, right? Yeah. That's kind of what I wanted to get to with you, Andrew, today, right? Is again, no idea if the seller's going to accept this. Don't hold me to it.
Yeah.
But if you can get into a turnkey triplex for 60 or 70 grand. Fixing the formula?
Yeah, I was looking at the formula. I'm like, why is this not looking right? So I haven't yet completely concluded as to why that didn't work.
I'll fix it.
But no, it's okay because I mean, quick math here. If you're 875 in and you're basically financing at 90%, like your quick math is 875 times 0.9. You're 787, so you're just like 90 grand. So figure on 100 grand.
Right.
After your closing costs. That's kind of the ballpark we're in here. 100 grand in and you're getting 368 a month in cash flow. You could work out your cash on cash there.
Yeah.
That it's definitely not nothing.
This is also assuming property management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
let's
that's
look
the
at
other thing I want to talk about, right? Like normally, so guys, when you're dealing with other realtors or looking at properties direct, please look at your numbers, look at the pro forma. I know a lot of people are buying properties, not using property management, not using maintenance. They're just looking at true utility and taxes and mortgage expenses.
Yeah.
Right. And insurance expenses. Well, even if you're managing the property yourself, throw a 4.25.
Well, yeah, there is a number. There is a number there. Yeah. And one of the things to keep in mind, that number is like, that's the number CMHC uses, the 4.25.
Yeah.
However, on a really small deal like this, it might be a little tougher to get that rate.
Yeah, like
it depends. You might have to ask.
You might be 6%. You might be 5%. Right? There's different companies out there. Again, someone that buys this, it's a pretty easy property to maintain and to run. Right? I would really, unless you don't want to do it, but if someone was getting into investing and this is what they were looking at, I would say, hey, why don't you give it a shot in managing this yourself?
My strategy would be. Like I have a VA, I have multiple now. So I would just have a VA that handles everything with the tenants, everything virtual, that doesn't require me, schedules, calls. And then I just need boots on the ground. Like you need your 24-hour plumbing, HVAC service. You got to have that. You got to have somebody who can do repairs. I do a lot of this in the US. That's not easy. That's not hard to find.
Yeah.
So you just apply the same thing, like use your network, find a handyman in the area. Now you've got your boots on the ground. You got somebody handling all the complaints with your VA. And the nice thing that I like about that is if you're a small time landlord, this gives you an excuse to hire a VA who can now do a bunch of other things for you too and manage that property. And and the math works out that you're paying less than you would if you were paying a manager.
Yeah.
So I would write it off as an expense against that property.
100%.
So that's how I would look at this. Talking to Andrew from 10 years ago, when I was in this type of deal, I would definitely approach it that way with kind of what I've gleaned over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was hoping is like we've all been and done this type of investing, and it's like,
well, the pain in the ass is dealing with the tenant emails and stuff.
Yeah.
Like get a branded email or a specific dedicated email for all property complaints and have your assistant in that inbox. Your assistant knows who to call. And then of course, train your tenants well. Send them an info sheet and you can have your VA work on this for you. Like send them an info sheet explaining to them what they're to do if things happen. How do they get in? How do they handle garbage? What's the policy with the house? That stuff, it's well worth taking the time to do.
100%.
As a small landlord, when you get into a property like this, you come up with policies and procedures. It's something that took me a while to get to, but when I finally got to that point with my student rentals, it was like the easiest thing ever to manage.
Yeah.
and they cash flowed very well. So.
And just to Andrew's point, anybody who's looking at this property in particular, we have that vendor list of plumbers, contracts, handyman, painters, everything. Like the owner's actually managing this himself.
Yeah.
So he's already has that vendor list. We talked to him about that. And he goes, I'll give you the whole roster. Like, you want to use the same guys I'm using, go for it.
Right. So what I did in London is I had Hyde Park Plumbing, not specifically trying to shout them out, but they had a 24-hour service, and they would just like any hour of the day. So if I had a tenant call me in the middle of the night, and it did happen, I would never pick it up. I would text them back, "What's up? There's a leak. There's water pouring in. Call the plumber.
Yeah.
Here's their number." Like, and after enough times of that happening, you stop getting that call. Like, I would just get an invoice at the end of the month seeing that they called the plumber.
Yep.
They just come out, I get an invoice at the end of the month and pay
That's it, right? Yeah. Like, and a lot of people, and I don't get the logic, but a lot of people go, "Oh, I'll buy a condo and rent a condo," and they manage that themselves, no issue, right? Mm-hmm. And then when it comes down to this type of stuff, they go, "Well, now I need property management." It's like, well, it's just 2 more tenants. And so there's grass cutting and snow removal and stuff like that. But again, like, we have that vendor list.
It's insourcing, right? Like, yes, you do not want to be the one doing all the calls, fielding all the issues. But for me, I like being the one who quarterbacks the responsibilities.
Yeah.
And if you just go hire an external property management business, you don't have your finger on the pulse of what type of tenants they're putting in your unit necessarily. So I like a property like this, especially I think this kind of really speaks to somebody who's thinking about pulling the trigger on their first property or maybe a second, is this gives you a chance to kind of make some mistakes, get in there, refine your processes.
Yep.
They're low-cost mistakes because it's a smaller property. And then that you can build on into bigger buildings.
Yeah, and you're buying in a strong market. You're buying a good asset that's been totally renovated. Yeah. And listen, we haven't talked about numbers for storage lockers, for converting the basement to another unit. Like, there is ways to increase income here. So anybody sitting here saying, well, it's turnkey, I want to pull my capital out in a few years, I don't want it locked up in this property.
So you say you could add 3 lockers that each generate $80, $100 a month? Could they do that? Or is that too much?
I'd say $50.
Okay, so say they do 50. So
and we're talking like, when you go into an apartment building, it's just like wood, like it's just like 2x4s, 2x1s, and they're like,
oh really?
Well, they're just like small little slats, and
so
they
basically just a wood framed lockers.
You just build wood framed lockers, steel mesh. You don't even need the steel mesh, like.
So just put some plywood up on it so people can't see?
Yeah, build plywood lockers, put a lock on it.
So you could literally build plywood lockers. We're talking about something you could do for then like maybe $1,000.
And you have a whole basement. So it's like people can have like legit locker. Like you can put your bikes.
So it might cost you a bit more than $1,000. In that case, I feel like you should get more than 50. But let's just say 50. Say you spend a couple $1,000 to do it. If it's 50 each, you're 150 a month times 12. What's that? 1,800 a year?
Yeah.
And it cost, it's almost 100% return on investment.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
And the beautiful part is you knock on every tenant's door and you go, "Hey, Mr. Tenant, would you like more storage?"
Yeah. And if they don't,
I'll build it for you and it's $50 a month.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they say no, then you go, "Okay, great. I'm going to build a unit down there then."
And I'll just keep the lock on it. Yeah. So, I mean, adding that extra 150, there's no additional expenses associated with that. Yeah. So if you're at that 5% cap rate, let's just figure out what so $1,800 a year, let's see here, divided by 0.05, that's an extra $36,000 in value to the building at the market cap rate of 5%. Now you could argue it's, different cap rate than that, but ballpark, we're a ballpark number.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think that this is a cool change of pace. Yeah. We're talking about a building obviously that is, more entry level, but still a great opportunity. Yeah. And like you said, a great market like St. Catharines on the Golden Horseshoe. I particularly like that region because of how close you are to the U.S.
Yeah.
And you can just get across the border and do a lot of things.
Yeah, and we listen to everybody that's come into the insider list we have a call with, right? And there's a lot of people in that list that said, "Hey, Jake, we love the bigger buildings, but do you mind showing us some smaller stuff?"
Yeah,
right. Like we're getting into investing. It's our first investment. It's our second investment. And we also have people in there that have 50 investments, and they're saying, "Give us bigger buildings." So we want to try to spread it out a little bit, so we're not always sitting in that 20 unit, 10 unit range, and give more opportunity. So this will come out on the deals of the week. Anybody in the insider list will get the pro forma. Yeah. We're going to fine tune this pro forma.
This was quick and dirty. Jake just got this together right before the episode. We wanted to have something new and fresh to talk about.
Yeah, anybody that watches all these episodes, they're like, we've definitely done a few where we signed that listing paperwork And then Andrew shows up an hour later and we film an episode, and it's like, okay, we really haven't dived into it, but we'll refine this. We'll make this, we'll find where that special sauce is for this deal, and we will get it out on the insider list. You'll have access to the data room, all of the info, the photos, and if you're interested, we can book showings and get you guys through.
Cool.
Well, go from there.
So just make sure you're on the list. The link for that will be, if you're on YouTube, it'll be under the video. If you're on Spotify or other podcast platforms, it's going to be in the show notes. And yeah, just a reminder that we are on the other podcast platforms now. So take advantage of that. You can listen to us in the car, what have you. And we are the video format on Spotify too. So if you want to skip all the ads from YouTube, you can do that.
There you go. And guys, one last thing before we leave. If there's something you want to see on this series, put it in the show notes, put it down below, comment, let me know what you guys want to see. We have tons of inventory, we have tons of product, and the more communication we have, the better it is for Andrew and I to kind of source what we should show on this show.
Yeah, easiest ways to contact us, like for me, just like Instagram, if you're on there at the Andrew Hines. You can also leave a comment under the video if you're on YouTube. Jake, what's the easiest way for people to just reach
Instagram?
out to you? Instagram.
My full name, Jacob Campagnaro, who's on Instagram.
Yeah. Okay.
Or you can even go to the Investments Group Instagram page. And just comment there. We'll get back to you guys. So yeah, throw something out there, whatever you want to see. I'm happy to take that comment and put it into action here.
Yeah, we obviously want to make these episodes interesting for our audience. So if there's more, more of a direction we can dig into, of course we're interested. And we've already had some of that feedback and implemented it. We just want more of that. So keep it coming, guys. Yeah. Keep leaving us suggestions in the comments. Is just fine and dandy if it's the easier thing for you. And with that said, thank you very much.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, and we'll see you again next week.